yesterday's show. We had a jam-packed show on Sunday. Did a little more than 2 hours. So I spent most of the day editing video from yesterday's show, reviewing information from my online class I taught on Saturday, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the topics that we discussed in class number 1 of that 10-week online course. So much going on. The recall election in California is concludes on Tuesday. I was watching Governor Gavin Newsom speak today, and also President Joe Biden in California as well on Governor Gavin Newsom's behalf. This idiotic recall election is costing taxpayers in California $300 million for this idiotic recall election. I thought Republicans were supposed to be fiscally conservative. Okay. So on today's show, yesterday, there was a topic I wanted to get to. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, September 10th. Usually a panelist each Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. And we talked about the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue, the 21-foot statue in Richmond, Virginia. You know, we talked about that here on this show. Well, the company that removed the statue is an African-American owned company. And the owner of the company is Davon Henry. And we spoke to him on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday. So I'm going to share an excerpt of that interview. Very interesting interview. His company has done $100 million removing Confederate statues and Confederate monuments. All right. So we're going to talk about that. Also, there was a follow-up to a story that we've talked about here on the show before. And this deals with Bruce's Beach in California. Okay. And this was beachfront property, resort property in California that was owned by African Americans. Okay. And it was purchased by Willa and Charles Bruce in 1912. Okay. And this was a powerful African American couple, and their land was taken away from them through eminent domain. Okay. Well, California lawmakers unanimously moved last week, Thursday, which was September 9th. They unanimously moved to allow the return of prime beachfront property to descendants of an African-American couple who were stripped of their resort. They were stripped of this resort property. It was taken by eminent domain about a century ago, or over a century ago. So we'll talk some about that here. We've talked about it before, dealing with Willa and Charles Bruce. And this is an example of the entrepreneurship, the economic empowerment that African Americans had, and it was interrupted by jealous white people. They received attacks from the Ku Klux Klan and all different types of things like this. It was crazy what happened. So it's interesting how you have people who would tell African Americans to try harder and all types of nonsense like this, and they don't even take their own advice. And instead of focusing on saying, well, America should be fair and level the playing field, they want to tell those who are the victims of racism to try harder, as opposed to removing the barriers and removing the obstacles and the policies and laws that created systemic racism, that created the structural inequities. But they don't take their own advice. So we'll talk about this update here. Um, um, Rodney, he said, "Tell me, brother, why I haven't heard either you or Roland talking about and pushing reparations. Can somebody clue Rodney in? I don't know where Rodney's been. I had Cam Howard of Encobra right here on this show, and we've gone through, even by myself, going through breaking down reparations and making legal arguments. So I don't know where he's been. In that interview I did with Cam Howard of Encobra before HR 40 passed out of the House Judiciary Committee for the first time in 32 years, that's archived. Facebook, YouTube, Blog Talk, iHeartRadio, all that. I don't know where people have been. I really don't. So we'll talk about that. And then also, today was day 15 in the R. Kelly trial. Day 15 in the R. Kelly trial. There was a backup dancer who testified under the name of Angela. She testified under the name of Angela. And she testified that back around 1993, she was on a tour bus with, I think it was on a tour bus with R. Kelly and Aaliyah. And she walked in on them in a sexual position. And this was at a time when Aaliyah was either 13 or 14 years old. This is at a time when Aaliyah was either 13 or 14 years old. Okay. So we'll give an update on what happened today in the R. Kelly trial. All right. We know last week they were on recess for about 3 days last week. So we talked about it Thursday. We didn't talk about the R. Kelly trial on Friday. I think there's some developments on Friday. I don't think we talked about it on Friday. One day last week we talked about it. But we'll give a brief update today on what happened. And, it's important to note that the defense has not presented their case yet. Okay, the defense has not presented their case yet. So this trial is far from over. As much as we want the trial to be over, because there's some sick stuff in this trial. The defense hasn't presented their case yet. The prosecution is still presenting their case, and the prosecution hasn't rested yet. So they're still, the prosecution is still presenting witnesses, etc. So we'll give an update on the R. Kelly trial. I know his younger brother, Carrie Kelly, was outside of court last week supporting his brother, saying that all the women were lying, all the women who were testifying under oath, penalty of perjury. He said all the women are lying. He didn't say some of them or one or two of them. He said they're all lying. Really? Okay. Interesting. I think we're going to find out soon. I just find it hard to believe all these women just made all this stuff up and they're all lying. Okay. Interesting. So we'll talk about that also. Then we're going to try to squeeze this in today's show. If not, we'll get to it tomorrow. So there was an article from NBC News. So there are reports that Democrats are close to a revised voting rights bill. Okay. NBC News is reporting Senate Democrats near agreement on voting rights legislation. Senate Democrats near agreement on voting rights legislation. The announcement of a voting rights bill is imminent as the Senate returns from its August recess this week. So this article is from September 12th, Sunday, September 12th. We know that the Senate returned today from its summer recess. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the first issue they were going to take up when they returned was dealing with voting rights, okay, and passing the voting rights, passing the new voting rights bill. So we're going to talk some about this. And then there was reporting over the weekend. Rolling Stone, rollingstone.com, Rolling Stone magazine had a good article dealing with President Joe Biden talking about using the weight of the presidency to put pressure on key Democrats to push through the voting rights bill. Okay, this was a good article from Rolling Stone, and a number of people are talking about this here. And I knew it was going to come to this. If we pull up this article here from Rolling Stone, let me see. Let's go to it right here. Biden tells Democrats he's preparing lobbying blitz on filibuster reform voting rights. Okay, this is from rollingstone.com. And a lot of people are talking about this as well. Biden tells top Democrats he's preparing a lobbying blitz on filibuster reform voting rights. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about this as well. All right, and this is really important. And the reason why, one of the reasons why is to defeat the restrictive voting rights bills that are being passed in state legislatures. Okay, so you have 18 states that have passed about 30 voter restriction bills. Okay, 18 states have passed about 30 voter restriction bills, and there's about 400 of these voter restriction bills in 49 state legislatures. Okay, so what we see here, and we talked about this in my class this past weekend, what we see here that's taking place in the state legislatures is the same thing that took place after Reconstruction ended. Same thing that took place after Reconstruction ended. And you had the Mississippi State Convention of 1890. And what you have after Reconstruction is you have white supremacists in the South trying to take back over the state legislatures in the South, take back over the political offices. And they're passing statewide laws. They're rewriting the state constitutions, passing statewide laws to reinforce white supremacy. We see the Mississippi State Constitution of 1890 that at that state convention, they passed poll taxes and literacy test laws and put that into the Mississippi State Constitution. We see it in the 1895 in South Carolina in their state constitution. We see it in Louisiana, 1898. We see it in Alabama, 1901. And they're writing into their state constitutions these voter suppression laws to disenfranchise African Americans as much as possible, because we were voting African Americans into political office, into the state legislature. In South Carolina, the majority of the state legislature during Reconstruction, the majority of the state legislature were made up of African Americans. And we're going to see a reversal of this after Reconstruction ends in 1877. We go through 1880s, 1890s, and we see the suppression of the African American vote. The very same thing that Republicans are doing now in the state legislatures across the country and trying to do. They did it in Texas with the bill that just passed. They did it with Senate Bill 201 in I think it was 201, Senate Bill 201 in Georgia. This is the same thing that happened in the 1890s and early 1900s in these southern states, these former Confederate states. We'll talk about this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. Stand by. Stand by, everybody. Okay, back from break in 4 minutes. Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. You can still register for the 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays. Class number 1 started up Saturday, September 11th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. From the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. So we deal with history after the Civil War ends and go through Jim Crow era, Reconstruction, go through World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. So the class is regularly $130, is on sale $80. As soon as you register, you can watch class number 1. There's other bonus content you can watch also. That's at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, stand by. We're back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by.
Current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. Question: would you seat your
Back from break in
3-year-old
1
child
minute.
on a windowsill?
The Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Monday, September 13th, 2021, and we are live. All right, calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. We'll also give you a brief overview of some of the topics we covered in class number 1 of my 10-week online course, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Class number 1 started up on Saturday, September 11th. This class is 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we go through and look at history after the Civil War ends. And we actually look at history events leading up to the Civil War starting in 1861. And we go through and look at the Civil War, the end of the Civil War in 1865, Reconstruction 1865 to 1877. We look at the Jim Crow era, World War I, World War II, Great Migration, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. Okay, this class is regularly $130, is on sale for a very limited time, only for $70. We do the class live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch it over and over again. And you can still watch the class even after the 10-week online course is over with. All right, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. There's bonus lectures that you get from me, also 6 bonus lectures. But as soon as you register, you can watch class number 1. Okay. All right, let's jump into this information. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, I want to look at this first article here. This is from CBS News, CBS.com, and it's originally from the Associated Press, and all these other outlets picked this up. This is an update to the story we've been talking about in the past a number of times, dealing with Bruce's Beach. Bruce's Beach, okay? And this was beachfront property in Manhattan Beach. It was purchased in 1912 by Willa and Charles Bruce, African-American family, African-American man and wife, Willa and Charles Bruce. And they were very successful. They owned a lot of property, and this property and some other people's property, even some white people's property, was taken through eminent domain by the state, okay, state of California. It's taken through eminent domain. All right, and their family has been fighting for years to get this land back. All right, so there's an article here from CBS.com. California moves to return seized beach to Black couples' descendants. California moves to return seized beach to Black couples' descendants. This is from September 10th, 2021. So California lawmakers unanimously moved on Thursday, September 9th, to allow the return of prime beachfront property to descendants of an African-American couple who was stripped of their resort for African Americans amid racist harassment a century ago. So they had a resort that was for a beachfront property that was a resort for African Americans. What was known as Bruce's Beach in the city of Manhattan Beach was purchased in 1912 by Willa and Charles Bruce. They built the first West Coast resort for African Americans during an era when racial segregation barred them from many beaches. Okay, during an era when racial segregation barred them from many beaches. The couple built a lodge, a cafe, a dance hall, and dressing tents with bathing suits for rent. Okay, so they own businesses, they own property, all of this. Now, Los Angeles County Supervisor Janice Hahn, H-A-H-N, said back in April 2021 that Bruce's Beach became a place where African American families traveled from far and wide to be able to enjoy the simple pleasure of a day at the beach. African American families traveled from far and wide to be able to enjoy the simple pleasure of a day at the beach. Now, it was back in April of 2021 that the county announced plans to return the property to the descendants of Willa and Charles Bruce, I should say. Now, the Ku Klux Klan tried to burn down their resort, and white neighbors harassed the couple and their customers. There were bogus 10 minutes only parking signs, bogus 10 minutes only parking signs that were posted, and beachgoers often returned to their cars to find the air had been let out of their tires, according to a legislative analysis. Now, Manhattan Beach used eminent domain to seize the land in 1924. The city took the land. The city of Manhattan Beach used eminent domain to seize the land in 1924, ostensibly for use as a park. So they said it was for use. They wanted to turn that land into a park, but the land sat vacant for years. The property languished until it was transferred to the state in 1948, then transferred to Los Angeles County in 1995. The property sat there for years without the city turning it into a park. So you have to wonder, okay, well, why'd you take the land then? Well, what was all that about? Now, it will take the state law that legislators sent to Governor Gavin Newsom last week, Thursday, September 9th, the Gavin Newsom has to sign the bill to transfer the property to the couple's descendants. All right. The transfer will also have to be approved by county supervisors. The transfer of the property will also have to be approved by county supervisors. Now, I don't know if Larry Elder would transfer the land. I don't know, because Larry Elder is saying that white slave owners should get reparations also. He said, you want to talk about reparations? He said, Larry Elder's a brain damaged Negro. Larry Elder is an example of what self-hatred looks like. And he's an example. I mean, you know, nothing in them is more dangerous than a certified Negro that's still under warranty. That's Larry Elder. He's been brain damaged for over 20 years that I know of. I ain't just finding out about Larry Elder now. No, Larry Elder's been brain damaged for decades. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. Hashtag a mind is a terrible thing to waste. I don't know if Larry Elder would return the land, but he thinks slave owners here in the U.S. he thinks they should have gotten reparations, even though they got their land returned to them, and even though many of them got land for massive land giveaways like the Homestead Act, the 1862 Southern Homestead Act of 1866. You have white people that got 2/3 of the land from the Dawes Allotment Act of 1887, and that land, most of that land is supposed to go to Native Americans and Black Indians. So, you know, these are the type of people that you have to keep out of political office because they're dangerous. Elections have consequences. Now, the bill will finally do the right thing. It will finally do the right thing to undo a wrong committed by the city of Manhattan Beach and aided by the state and the county, Democratic Senator Stephen Bradford said. This bill represents economic and historic justice and is a model of what reparations can truly look like. This is Democratic Senator Stephen Bradford of California. He's saying that this bill to restore this beachfront property to the descendants of Charles and Willa Bruce represents economic and historic justice and is a model of what reparations can truly look like. Now, I said this before when we talked about this, because this property is worth millions of dollars now. One estimate is that the property is worth $75 million. That was one estimate. When they return this property, number one, the property, they should not have to pay property taxes ever again on this property because they've lost millions of dollars in lost earnings because this property was taken away from them, taken away from the family. They've lost millions of dollars in lost earnings. So one, they should not have to pay. They should not have to pay property taxes. Two, they shouldn't have to pay any back property taxes, anything like that on it. Because I'm not saying, you never know what type of tricks they'll come up with. So I'm just saying they should not have to pay any property taxes going forward, and they should not have to pay any back property taxes. And in addition to getting the land back, I think there should be some type of economic compensation also, in addition to getting the land back. Now, Democratic Senator Stephen Bradford said it represents economic and historic justice and is a model of what reparations can truly look like. Now, city council members in Manhattan Beach, and Manhattan Beach is a predominantly white and upscale city of about 35,000 people on the south shore of Santa Monica Bay. They formally condemned the property seizure in April of 2021. They formally condemned this property being seized in April of 2021. So we know there's a statewide bill in California to investigate reparations and paying reparations to some type of restitution to African Americans. It can't just be for slavery. It needs to deal with structural inequities after slavery ended, because it's also important to understand different states abolished slavery at different points in time. Okay. So That's something important to understand as well. The history of slavery in all states are not the same, but you have to look at what happens after they abolish slavery and redlining, Jim Crow laws, the structural inequities that were put in place and still exist today. All right. So check out this article here from CBS.com. California moves to return seized beach to black couples' descendants. California moves to return seized beach to black couples' descendants. Okay, now I want to go to this next article. We're going to go to clip 1 here in just a second, Shakita. And we'll go to the phone lines in just a minute. So last week, September 8th, I think it was September 8th, we talked about this. The statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, who was a white supremacist slave owner, who committed treason against the Union and took up arms against the Union. The statue of General Robert E. Lee that was taken down in Richmond, Virginia. It had been up for 131 years. 131 years. Okay. And people from around the country were watching this. There's an article from NBC News about this that we talked about last week. I think this is NBC News that we talked about last week. They picked this up from the Associated Press. There was also one from, this is NBC News. There was also one from, what is this here? Associated Press, AP News, Associated Press. I want to pull up this article. Then we're going to go to this clip here. So I was watching them take it down. We posted the video on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, of them taking this down. And I did not know that the company that was contracted to take down this statue was an African-American owned company. I just thought, the state did it or the city did it or something like that. I didn't know that it was a contracted company, number one. Number two, I didn't know it was an African-American company that took down this statue. So Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond, Virginia, taken down, cut into pieces. Now, a lot of people were happy this day. Some people were crying. They felt like their history is being taken away from them. The history of the traitors are being taken away from them. History of the insurrectionists, the domestic terrorists. A crowd erupted in cheers and song Wednesday as work crews hoisted an enormous statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee off the giant pedestal where it had towered over Virginia's capital city for more than a century. One of America's largest monuments to the Confederacy, and the largest one is Stone Mountain in Georgia. We need to do something about that. One of America's largest monuments to the Confederacy, the equestrian statue, was lifted down to the ground just before 9 a.m. after a construction worker who strapped harnesses around General Lee and his horse lifted his arms in the air and counted down 3, 2, 1 to jubilant sounds from a crowd of hundreds. A work crew then began cutting the statue of the traitor into pieces. Governor Ralph Northam, Democratic governor of Virginia, said this was a long time coming, part of the healing process so Virginia can move forward and be a welcoming state with inclusiveness and diversity. He said that taking this statue down represents more than 400 years of history that we should not be proud of. The statue itself represents more than 400 years of history that we should not be proud of, and he congratulated Virginians for supporting its removal. Now, it's taken years for this statue to come down after a petition, and we know it was in August 2017 We know that in Charlottesville, Virginia, you had the Unite the Right rally, and you had white supremacist organizations, 12 white supremacist organizations that had this Unite the Right rally, which was geared around saving a statue of General Robert E. Lee there in Charlottesville, Virginia. What's interesting to know about General Robert E. Lee, if you actually read, and half these white supremacists can't read, but if you actually read, General Robert E. Lee was against Confederate monuments, and he was against Confederate statues after the Civil War ended, and he was against using any of the Confederate flags, even the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia, under his army, which is the flag that's on the Dukes of Hazzard car. Many people and a lot of these white supremacists think that's the Confederate flag. No, it's not the Confederate flag. It's the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee's army. There were 3 flags that flew over the Confederate States of America from 1861 to 1865. That flag was never one of them. But they don't know this because they don't study history. They don't read. Half of them can't read. If you read this article here from TheAHNShow.com called The Myth of the Kindly General Lee, the myth of the kindly General Lee, the legend of the Confederate leader's heroism and decency is based in the fiction of a person who never existed. So they talk about the myths surrounding General Robert E. Lee. Okay. He was a brutal slave owner. He took up arms against the Union to maintain slavery, but he was against Confederate monuments. He felt that the Union, that he felt that the country, after the Civil War ended, he felt that the country needed a time of healing. And to have these Confederate monuments honoring these traitors to the Union, to have the Confederate battle flags and the different Confederate flags, to still have that out in public would not allow the wounds to heal. So he was against that. There were times when he was invited to the unveiling of a statue or monument dedicated to him, and he declined to go. And he was against those statues. He was against those monuments, not just the ones to him, but any of them dealing with the Confederacy. So in Charlottesville, the crazy thing about Charlottesville was here you have these 12 white supremacist organizations who are ignorant of history. 1, 2, apparently most of them can't read. 3, they're wandering around with a flag they call the Confederate flag, but it's not the Confederate flag. It's the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee's army, because that flag never flew over the Confederate States of America. I guess they watched the Dukes of Hazzard too much. And the flag on the car, well, number one, the name of the car on the TV show The Dukes of Hazzard called the General Lee. The car was named after General Robert E. Lee. It's named after a slave owner who took up arms to keep African people enslaved. But the flag wasn't the Confederate flag, and they're trying to save a statue to a man who didn't want a statue. Now, this is a picture of the 21-foot statue that was taken down. The company that took the statue down is an African-American-owned company. It's owned by a brother named Davon Henry. We talked to him last Friday, September 10th, on Roland Martin Unfiltered, okay? Here's an excerpt of that interview. Let's go to clip 1, Shakita. Okay, take it off mute.
What happened in Virginia, where Robert E. Lee statue was removed, this massive 6-foot statue was taken down, and the whining and the crying of Donald Trump and all of the Confederate lovers continues. It was, of course, a great sight to see. Again, taking this 61-foot statue, folks, 6 stories tall, and it finally came down. You have, of course, Virginia is one of those places where you have lots of Confederate memorials all across the state. also places like Mississippi as well as Alabama. On Tuesday, a number of Richmond residents, they watched and cheered as the monument was taken down from the former capital of the Confederacy. Now, what was so great about that? It wasn't just that it was taken down. It was taken down by a brother. Joining us right now is Davon Henry. He's a CEO and founder of Team Henry Enterprises, LLC. Glad to have you joining us here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I got to ask you, first of all, how was your construction company selected to be the one to remove the Robert E. Lee white domestic terrorist statue?
Hey, Roland, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me. Believe it or not, this process actually started over a year ago when all the unrest was happening in Richmond with George Floyd murder. The governor of Virginia decided that he wanted to take this statue down that had been up for 130 years. And when he started calling folks and his staff started calling folks, there was no one in the vicinity, in the Richmond, Virginia metro area, including the Mid-Atlantic, that agreed that would want to do it. And so ultimately, someone new within his circle, actually his chief of staff, said, hey, Davon Henry has a construction company. How about you give him a call? And when others said no, I was the only one that said yes. And that's how the conversation and the process started.
So just tell me, we've seen the photos circulating of you hugging your mother. Just tell us, what was going through your mind to be a black construction company owner and your company, the one taking down that massive statue of this traitor to America and this white domestic terrorist.
I like all the words you're using to describe the statue. My mother, who I grew up single mother household. She's done a lot for me and my brothers, and she was there at the event. And when I came down, she was screaming, "Hey, hey, hey, hey!" And first thing I did was run over there and give her a hug. I'll admit I'm a mama's boy, but like I said, this process has started for over a year in the planning process. And every time I started thinking about what we were doing and going through what we needed to do, there's a quote by John Mitchell Jr., who was with the Black Planet. It was a newspaper here in Richmond back in that time. And he quoted, his quote was, black folks put up this statue, and when the time came, it would be a black man to take it down. And that quote resonated with me, stuck with me for over a year. And so when the time came, it was extremely emotional, extremely, it's bigger than me. Like Nino Brown said in New Jack City, this is bigger than Davon Henry. There were so many people that have worked over decades to try to get this statue down. And I was just pleased and honored to be the person that was able to fulfill a lot of people's work.
Tell us how difficult the process was, because you couldn't just take it down. You had to basically cut the head off.
Okay, are we still there?
Yeah, we put together a team, and we studied it. We understood exactly where we needed to make the cuts to actually lift the statue off of the granite. It's 60 feet in the air. The statue itself is 22 feet from top to bottom, and it weighs about 24,000 pounds. So when you think about something that size in the air that hasn't been touched in over 130 years, there's a lot of due diligence, a lot of planning that had to take place. The reason why we cut it was just for a safety reason. When you're transporting something that size, you need to be within code and compliance and make sure that on the roads that it can be safely transported. So just going through all that process of understanding how things were built back then, and which is miraculous that black folks were that crafty to build something like that. It's massive. And so just coming together with our team and putting together a solid plan that everyone agreed upon, it just really took a lot of time, but as you can see, was executed flawlessly.
Okay, hey Shakita, do me a favor. Let's go to clip 2. Shakita, let's go to clip 2. All right. So here, clip 2. I get to ask Davon Henry a question regarding removing the statue of General Robert E. Lee. Let's go to clip 2.
Previous stuff, but ultimately,
wait, before you.
You know, when I do this work, I'm wearing a bulletproof vest, extremely aware of the surroundings, making sure there's law enforcement around. But yeah, there was a really significant backlash from death threats to folks that in our area who said they would never do work with my construction company again. So, you know, we had to go through quite a bit of adversity, quite a bit of BS in doing this type of work.
Michael.
Hey, Davon. First of all, congratulations, brother, on this. This is fantastic what you're doing. And you've taken down 21 Confederate statues.
That's right.
The 21. Okay, that's excellent work. What is, when we look at these Confederate statues, you are correct. These were built long after the Civil War ended. This one here was built in 1890. What are people talking about putting in place of this Confederate statue of General Robert E. Lee, who, by the way, was against Confederate statues and against Confederate monuments, even those of him? He didn't think any of them should exist after the Civil War ended. Are people talking about putting something in its place to talk about this history? Because this history needs to be taught. One of the reasons why we're still dealing with the issues today is because we don't understand the history of the Civil War.
Yeah, let me first acknowledge that pin on your lapel. That looked like a mighty nice pin, blue fire. But
hey, go my friend.
The governor and the folks in Virginia have established a commission that they're trying to reimagine, because it wasn't just General Lee there. It was
Governor, can you hear me?
I'm sorry? So there were 5 other statues along Monument Road is what they call it, Monument Avenue. And 5 different Confederate statues. But there's also a statue of Arthur Ashe at the end of Monument Avenue now, which is the only statue that still stands on Monument Avenue now that General Lee is down. But to answer your question, there is a commission put together that's going to take some time to study what do they want to do with that area, with the pedestal, and they call it the Reimagining the Monument Avenue Commission.
Okay.
All right, Shakita. All right, stop that clip. All right, thanks. Okay, so we found out he's one of my frat brothers of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Very quickly here, and we ran out of time here. Do me a favor, call back tomorrow. We're here tomorrow. We're here Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Be sure to register for the 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays, where we deal with a lot of this history from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We had a new class that started up Saturday, September 11th, class number 1. We do the classes live. All the sessions are recorded. So as soon as you register, you can watch class number 1. Some of the things we dealt with in class number 1, we started with what led up to the Civil War starting April 12, 1861. Okay, so we looked at the Louisiana Purchase of 1803 and how Louisiana Purchase doubled the territory of the U.S. and gave more land for the U.S. to have slaves, and it increased the need for African slaves. We looked at the Texas becoming a state in the Union in 1845, Texas winning its independence from Mexico in 1836, and coming into the Union as a slaveholding state in 1845. We looked at Manifest Destiny, and the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo of 1848. They ended the Mexican-American War, and because of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the U.S. gets the territory from Mexico that makes up California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. And because of this new territory in determining which territories are going to have slaves and which are going to be free states, this leads to what's known as the Compromise of 1850. The Compromise of 1850 consists of 5 bills. One of the most important bills was the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which intensifies the abolitionist movement. It causes more runaway slaves to have to run away into Canada because they're not safe in the North. We dealt with the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which dealt with leaving it up to those people who were living in this new Western territory, whether or not they were going to have slaves, as opposed to it being dictated by the federal government. The Kansas-Nebraska Act leads to the Republican Party being formed in 1854 by groups of abolitionists who are trying to abolish slavery, and they're the counter to the Democratic Party. And then the Kansas-Nebraska Act also leads to what's known as Bleeding Kansas, which was armed combat, but from about 1854 to 1855 in Kansas against pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups. It was armed conflicts between them. So these are some of the things we talked about in class number 1. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the class. As soon as you register, you can watch class number 1. We'll post the information here also. We're out of time here. For those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We'll keep broadcasting for a few more minutes. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent. Right now, it's correction wrong behaviors, not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Stand by. Here's the link to register for the course. So it's regularly $130. It's on sale now for $70 for a very limited time only. And you'll get also 6 bonus lectures from me as well. One of them deals with the real history of Juneteenth. That's included. It'll be in digital download format when you register. It's dealing with the real history of Juneteenth. It's a 2.5-hour presentation I did June 16th, 2021. Okay. Lastly, we'll talk a little bit about R. Kelly. We'll get the rest. We'll talk some more about R. Kelly tomorrow. Let's just look at this briefly here. Day 15 in the R. Kelly trial. These other topics we'll have to get to tomorrow. We're only here for an hour, and I've got a lot of work that I'm trying to get caught up on. If you saw Sunday's show or missed any of it, we're going to rebroadcast it. And that because I just finished editing the show, so it's going to rebroadcast on our social media platforms. So just a second here. Okay, so day 15 of the R. Kelly trial, we saw a woman who was a backup singer for R. Kelly. She testified today. She testified using the name Angela, but she testified that she saw back around 1993, she saw R. Kelly and Aaliyah in a sexual position. Now, this was at a time when Aaliyah would have been either 13 or 14 years old. Okay, there is really good coverage from the New York Times. I've been reading their coverage every day, basically all the articles that they have on this from the New York Times. Also, there's a good article from BuzzFeed as well. Let's look at this here quickly. R. Kelly sexually abused Aaliyah when she was 13 or 14, witness says. Now, let's see here. Let's go to this. Okay. The witness, a former backup performer, says she walked in on the singers as they were engaged in a sex act around 1993, 1 year before they were illegally married. 1 year before they were illegally married. So a former backup performer for R. Kelly testified that she saw R. Kelly engaging in the sex act with R&B singer Aaliyah around 1993. The woman who testified under only the name Angela told jurors at R. Kelly's criminal trial in Brooklyn that she was performing with R. Kelly on tour when she went to visit the singer on his tour bus, But as she began to open the door, Angela said she saw R. Kelly, who at the time was in his mid-20s, and Aaliyah. She said she saw them, quote, in a sexual situation, she told jurors. Now, Aaliyah was seated in a chair, she said, and R. Kelly was kneeling and appearing to perform a sex act on her. Angela said, quote unquote, she closed the door abruptly, she said, and never spoke with R. Kelly about what she saw. Now, the testimony came on the 15th day of R. Kelly's trial. Now, remember, he is he's dealing with, he's charged with 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of violation of the Interstate Sex Trafficking Act called the Mann Act. Okay. The testimony came on the 15th day of R. Kelly's trial, during which so far 6 accusers, including Angela, have said that R. Kelly had sex with them while they were underage. But Angela's account stood apart from others. Aaliyah, whom R. Kelly married illegally in 1994, is the youngest girl that the singer has been accused of sexually abusing, and Angela became the first accuser to testify that she had seen the two engaged in sexual acts. Now, Aaliyah, whose full name was Aaliyah Dana Halton, died in a plane crash in 2001. Okay, now, and for those that don't know, that's Aaliyah's picture that you see behind me. If you're wondering who that is behind me, if you haven't figured it out yet. So R. Kelly, 54 years old, faces 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of violating the Mann Act, which prohibits transporting people across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. R. Kelly has denied the accusations, and he's denied the accusations and pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. All right. Now, also on Monday, September 14th, a second male accuser testified against R. Kelly. The witness identified only as Alex. And let me see, do we have this up here? Hold on. Close that out. Here it is. Okay, I thought we had that picture up. All right, so the witness testified only as Alex, said that R. Kelly groomed him for sex beginning when he was 16 years old. Okay, he testified that R. Kelly groomed him for sex when he was 16 years old. This is the second male that testified that he had sex with R. Kelly. He said that they began having sex when he was 20 years old, and said that from the year 2007 to the year 2019, he was, quote unquote, brainwashed by the singer. So just to be clear, Alex did not testify that he began having sex with R. Kelly when he was 16. He said that R. Kelly groomed him for sex beginning when he was 16, but he testified that they began having sex when he was 20 years old. Okay, so I just want to make that clarification. Now, Aaliyah, who was one of the most celebrated music stars of the 1990s, has been a significant focus of R. Kelly's trial. The marriage of the two singers using falsified documents when Aaliyah was 15 years old, and when Aaliyah married R. Kelly, like, everybody in Detroit knew that she was not 18 years old because she was from Detroit. So everybody knew, because I remember hearing about it on the radio. Okay, so people have to understand, they got married in 1994. 1994, we didn't have Facebook and YouTube and all this stuff. YouTube wasn't created in 1995. We didn't have social media like we have today. So information moved much slower back then, and you were more dependent on radio stations, traditional television, things like that, magazines. I think we had MySpace. And maybe Black Planet back then. But it's like, 1994, if you had internet, it was probably AOL, or like you had dial-up internet. People didn't have high-speed internet then. You had dial-up internet, AOL. You've got mail. Okay, you took the telephone cord and plugged it into the telephone jack in the wall. We didn't have high-speed internet, so it was like totally different back then. All right, but I remember hearing on the radio that Aaliyah married R. Kelly, and we're like, her parents approved of them getting married. She's underage. She's not 18. And then I remember them saying, okay, she's 18, blah, blah. I'm like, Aaliyah's not 18. So even back then, a lot of us knew something was wrong. Okay, let's continue here. The marriage of the two singers using falsified documents when Aaliyah was 15 and R. Kelly was 27 prompted the first significant scrutiny of his encounters with underage girls. Potential sex crimes that date to the early 1990s would typically be too old to prosecute. They ran the statute of limitations. But the racketeering charge, which claims that the singer, whose full name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, was the head of a criminal scheme that preyed on women and underage girls for sex, allows the government wider latitude. The racketeering charge allows the government for wider latitude. Now, Angela, who testified today, said that she first met R. Kelly around 1991 when she was between 14 and 15 years old. R. Kelly began to have sex with her while she was underage and a student in high school, she testified. Okay. Angela recalled that R. Kelly often pressured her and several others who worked around him as backup performers. He often pressured them for sex. She told jurors today that she first met Aaliyah shortly before the young singer began to work on her first album. Wait for it. Her first album was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. We talked about this here on the show before. Aaliyah's first album was produced by R. Kelly. The name of the album was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. The title song, the title track, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, is about a younger girl, a younger woman, this is actually a younger girl, wanting to have sex with an older man. That's what the song is about. And the album was produced by R. Kelly, the Pied Piper. So once again, back 1994, all this, most of us weren't putting like all these pieces together. Because like I said, information moved much slower back then. But now you look at it, you put all the pieces together, it's like, whoa, was that wait a second? That's one of the things that the documentary Surviving R. Kelly did. It took all these pieces that we've heard over the years, and it just put all of it together, one after another, after another, after another, after another. Then you see, when you put all this stuff together in sequence, put it all together chronologically, then it takes on a whole new meaning. So Aaliyah's first album was called Age Ain't Nothing But a Number. And Angela told jurors that she first met Aaliyah shortly before the young singer began to work on her first album with R. Kelly. Aaliyah traveled on a tour with R. Kelly to, quote, get her feet wet, end quote, in the industry around 1992 and 1993, Angela testified today. But it was during that trip, she said that she saw the two engaged in a sexual act. Aaliyah would have been 13 or 14 years old at the time. Now, on a separate stop in Washington, D.C. during the tour, Angela recalled that she and a group of other girls, including Aaliyah were reprimanded for breaking the singer's instructions. Reprimanded for breaking R. Kelly's instructions. Okay, now Angela told jurors that they had made a trip to 7-Eleven convenience store, 7-Eleven for food, but that R. Kelly had told them not to leave their hotel. When he learned of their disobedience, he demanded sex, she said. Angela said, Robert told us we would have to put out. She said, she testified the day that Robert told all of us we would have to put out. Quote, it was dues time, D-U-E-S. It was dues time, she added, explaining to jurors that the singer often presented having sex with him as a form of paying their dues. Okay, that sounds like some Iceberg Slim stuff. I don't, it's like, I don't, was this Dolomite or something? Angela said that she refused the singer's advances. While Aaliyah was among the girls that R. Kelly had addressed, she was not aware whether the two had sexual encounters immediately following the incident. Now, Alex, the male accuser who testified also today, and the second male accuser to testify in this trial, Alex on Monday also testified to countless sexual encounters with R. Kelly and other women at R. Kelly's direction. He testified that for more than a decade, he often saw the singer at parties and pickup basketball games, what he called, quote unquote, Kelly ball, in which, quote, you'd get the ball, rebound, let him shoot at a recreational center and a church gymnasium in Chicago. R. Kelly first made an advance on him inside the singer's Maybach, his car. When Alex was about 20 years old, he said, quote, I recall him just talking to me, then forcefully kissing me, licking my face, end quote. He said, adding that afterward, R. Kelly told him, quote, just to be open-minded. Okay, yeah, all right, whatever. During his sexual encounters with R. Kelly, he said the singer referred to him as nephew. Alex testified, although they are not related. He said that he was directed to call R. Kelly daddy. Sometimes afterward, he said R. Kelly would slap $100 or $2 in my hand just for gas money. All right, so you can read the rest of this. This is enough R. Kelly for today. You read the rest of this. We may deal with some more of the trial tomorrow if I feel like dealing with it. So read this from the New York Times. You can read the rest of this. Also, there's an article from BuzzFeed that deals with today's testimony also. All right. Okay. Hey, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me /the AHN Show, paypal.me /the AHN Show. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. This is our official Cash App account, $ the AHN Show, SHOW. And when you go to it, it shows my name. It says Michael and shows my picture. These other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. I did not set these up. These are fake ones. I will be, yesterday's show, we had Damon Petty on from the Detroit second annual African Cultural Festival. So that's taking place Friday, September 17th and Saturday, September 18th. So I will be there. That's at Maharis Gentry Park. Let's pull this up here. And we're going to put this flyer on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network also. We'll put the information on our website. I'm speaking on Saturday. So it is Friday, 12 noon to 2 p.m. and Saturday, I'm sorry, Friday, 12 noon to 6 p.m. and it's Saturday, 12 noon to 8 p.m. I'm speaking on Saturday sometime between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. They still have to figure everything out. This is free and open to the public, good family-oriented event. Their website is DetroitACF.org. DetroitACF.org is their website. So you can check out the information there. They'll have African dance, African drumming, vendors. We'll have a vendor booth there for the African History Network. I'll be there on Saturday, and I'll be speaking on Saturday also. So there's a good cultural event. It's free and open to the public. Bring the family. They're also accepting donations as well, accepting help. So they'll have that information at their website, DetroitACF.org, DetroitACF.org. Okay. Now, also on September 26th at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, I will be there, and there's a screening of the documentary Hapi. Hapi is a film from director Taki Grant that deals with African history and economic empowerment. Okay. And featured in the film Hapi are one of my teachers, Professor James Small, who we've had here on the show a number of times. Also, Dr. Wade Nobles is in the documentary, Dr. Julian Malveaux, a number of other people. So we're doing a screening of the film Hapi and a panel discussion. There'll be a few people from the film in the panel. I want to get some confirmations. I think Professor James Small will be here, but I'll be moderating the panel discussion. This is Sunday, September 26th, 3 p.m. Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History here in Detroit. Visit their website, hapifilm.com for more information and to purchase tickets. Okay. And you'll hear more about this because we're going to have some of the people who are going to be here for the panel discussion. We'll have them here on the show also. All right. Okay, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.